Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, it is okay to celebrate.
And speaking of celebrations, is a party at the Benz with the win over the Panthers last week. Will there be another party against the Packers this weekend?
And last but not least, and for the culture, y'all better not leave them folks out. It's ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also want to let you know that this episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Coming up in 9 minutes. It's going down at Mercedes Benz on Sunday, but is Arthur Smith going to put Desmond Ridder in the right situation? We'll talk about all that next. But first, we got to talk about the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, our girl, Tenitra Batiste is back. So you can dry all your tears. They were just crying up some that you weren't here yesterday. So, Aaron had to kind of power through that. You know how Aaron gets he's a little sensitive sometimes. So, he had to power through it. But, when you were out though, obviously the Braves clinched the National League East title team 6 straight times. And to be honest with you, like me growing up in Atlanta, I know I can hear some of the, fickle fans, I call them fickle, saying, man, we don't need to be celebrating no division title. It's all about winning the World Series. But my whole thing with that, my response to that, T, is, enjoy the moment. Because I know when after that game, T, when they went back to 2018, when Alex Anthopoulos first walked through that door, it was so cool to see Ronald Acuna looking like a little kid, and Brian Snitker looking young, looking like a young granddaddy. You know what I'm saying? So for them to just be able to go through that moment and celebrate, genuinely celebrate, you absolutely love it, because you don't want to be out there saying, we got to win it. It's all about the World Series. No, enjoy the moment for now. And then once you get all your bearings together and kind of get it out, then you start thinking about down the road.
Exactly. And let's put this in perspective as well. Like you said, Brian Snitker is 67 years old. He has spent his entire career with one organization. Exactly. One organization. And there were times when, and I've said this before, but in case you guys missed it, there were times where early in my career, because this is my second act, Brian Snitker used to come on because he was a buddy of Mike Sammons, one of the early hosts on 92.9 The Game. Yes. And this was back when Snit was the skipper for the Stripers. And man, I would just sometimes sit there and listen to him because he was a laid back guy, give you some good information or what have you. And then to see him come up to the Braves, walk through the rebuild, and then come out on the other side, you're darn right. You should celebrate every single thing. Celebrate the fact that you guys probably will walk away with the most home runs ever in a major league season, because we still have 2 weeks to go. So I want to see where they land for real. But most runs driven in, if you will, all of those things, all of the accolades, Ronald Acuna Jr. with the history he's chasing, league-wide overall, Matt Olson with the history that he's chasing, and although the records he's broken. I mean, Jarvis, we could go on and on. Spencer Strider chasing the strikeout record. Why in the world would you not, especially when you don't know what will happen in October? Are we absolutely expecting a World Series title? No question. But that does not mean that you don't appreciate what these 6 division titles will do. And can I just say this? Mm-hmm. Someone said this yesterday, and I apologize that I can't remember exactly where I heard it or who said it, but I'm going to repeat it because it bears repeating. I think it may have actually, oh, you know what? It's our guys, Carl Dukes and Mike Bell. I was listening to the show Headed Home last night, and they said something that I said, you know what? Jarvis will appreciate this being born and raised here. Yes, you went through personally, and I'm a Braves fan. I've told you guys that's the one team here that I've rooted for my entire life. But you physically went through it, being in the city, watching them win division title after title after title for a decade and a half and coming away with one ring. So we get that that's a little bit triggering. But newsflash, you got a ring then, and then you got one a couple years ago, right? So that should be washed away at this point. Now, as a Falcons fan, you can be triggered because you're going to be triggered for 28-3 until you guys bring a ring home. That's just the reality of it. Absolutely. But the Braves fans don't need to be triggered like that. You've won a ring, so you should really enjoy this because you should have gotten over, oh yeah, but you remember that time when we won all those division titles and we only walked away with a ring? Well, guess what? This time you're probably going to walk away with the ring again. But until that day comes, all of these things that you've done that are so great until right now, can you just please say, can we just give love to the Braves? Yeah, enjoy it, Atlanta.
Exactly, and when you think about the sub stories, like the lines, those storylines, right? You talk about Ronald Acuna Jr. Literally dang near locking in the NL MVP situation. Then his teammate Matt Olson, hey, I should at least deserve to be in the top 5 when you're talking about from a vote getting standpoint. So
yes.
It's just too many things to celebrate and acknowledge for you to be sitting up and saying, "Oh man, it's all about the World Series." No, forget that. Like, let's celebrate this thing because let's look how the season started. T, you lost Max Fried, you lost Kyle Wright, a 20-game winner, your ace. And you dealt with Michael Harris, had his struggles. He had injury issues to start the season. Then he was slumping all like crazy. So and that's your rookie of the year. And then, Spencer Strider had his ups and downs. Charlie Morton had his up and downs. Raisel Iglesias having some issues.
Yeah.
So you've been able to overcome so much, T. I think just right now, people just be in the moment, enjoy the moment. And then once, maybe a couple of days, and you say, you know what? After they get this series popping off, and you start looking towards the end of the season, like you said, the last couple of weeks, then you start to think about, okay, now you're in a situation where, all right, after you celebrate, what is your focus in? What do you think they should be focusing in now, T, as far as from a clinching, now that they clinched the division, where do you think their focus should be on now?
Yeah, and here's the thing I love. They are already focused. Like Brian Snitker in his speech in the post-game locker room talked about, hey, enjoy this, and we will, but we're focused. We know we're not there yet. We know we have work to do. That entire team had that same theme going throughout the locker room, throughout the post-game pressers. So Jarvis, they're locked in. They're
very consistent. And that's a credit to Brian Snitker for sure.
Exactly. So the focus is there. They're not satisfied. They're still very, very hungry, and I can respect that. But I think you make a great point because looking at a series like even this weekend, you're going against the Miami Marlins. They're infamous for doing dirty little things to Ronald Acuna Jr. So if you want to sit him and give him a day of rest, that's perfectly okay with me because they play dirty when it comes to him. Let's just be real. Yeah. So I think it becomes like a strategy of, and of course he's playing the long game. He always does. But if you're looking at, okay, the Marlins, we've got the answer. We're 9-1 in the series this season against them. So you've only dropped a game. Therefore, let some guys rest. Ronald Acuna Jr., I would love to see him rest because I do not want them to injure him. And we know it would be on purpose. Let's just be real. Then they get the Phillies coming back home. You've already taken care of business with them. So you just show what you need to show. Do the bare minimum just to kind of get out of there and keep everybody healthy. And then you can probably put forth whoever the heck you want to because you play the Nats twice in the last 3 series to end the season. So actually, Jarvis, I kind of like where they're ending up at the end of the season because they don't have to really tax anybody, even if they want to bring some players up from pitchers as far as the rotation goes from AAA just to kind of save their arms. I think that would be a great strategy for starters to end the last 2 weeks of the regular season.
And to be honest with you, and to throw this is the name it's the only name that I'm thinking about, Kyle Wright. That's the only name that I'm thinking about right now because I am so interested to see how they're going to use him, right? Because we know what the rotation is. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, and then Bryce Elder, and then you got Kyle Wright. Okay, what is he going to be? Is Bryce Elder going to be up for a long relief as well? You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to once you get into the 7-game series, I'm saying that they're going to get out of they're going to do that thing. They're going to do that thing, and I think that from a home field advantage standpoint, I think the Dodgers are I think they're like 7 or 8 games over the Dodgers right now. So when you take that into consideration, like right now, I really feel like this is a good space for the Braves to be in. And I think that, looking at what Kyle Wright is and determining what his role is going to be in the playoffs, I think that's pretty much, and add to what you just said as far as the health goes, like the Braves are pretty much ready to rock.
Yeah, I would agree as well. And one more thing that I want to say, for the last 2 weeks, I need them to show all the swag that they feel like showing, because when you hear other managers have the audacity to say, act like you've been here, but when you get there, your players get to do the same thing as far as how they trot around. How they trot around the bases. Right, exactly. And so that's the other thing. Keep your identity, Braves. Keep your identity these last 2 weeks that you're going in to the postseason, and don't change a thing, because this is what got you to the party. I want to see you enjoy yourselves the way we've been able to watch the joy of you and have the joy of watching you this entire season. Be you.
Absolutely. T, I got to take time out to tell the people about Jace Medical, because this episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Because guess what, guys? This is something that you need to take a look at, because everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. So how does it work, Jarvis? All right, let me tell you. All right, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is you go online, fill out a form, and you get prescription life-saving medications right to your door. Jace Case gives you peace of mind that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in emergency. It makes sure that you have it. So when you need access to it, you can absolutely grab it. So save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON to check out on jacemedical.com. That's jacemedical.com, JASE medical.com, and all you got to do is use the promo code Locked On, and you're going to save yourself more than $360 plus an extra $20 by dropping that code Locked On.
And that's fantastic, because we know right now we're changing seasons. We're transitioning from summer to fall, and that's when a lot of people do get sick. So to be able to have a resource like that, I think is absolutely fantastic in Jace Medical. Now, speaking of resources, looks like the Falcons have all their resources coming into a critical matchup against the Packers. And the reason we say that is this, because the Packers looked really, really good last week against the Bears. Granted, it was the Bears. We get that. But it's not so much always your opponent, which Ryan Nielsen talked a little bit about that several times this week. But a lot of times it's also about you having the ability to execute your game plan, because everyone's understanding their assignment and executing within themselves, right? And so that brings us to where we think the Falcons should be just in terms of execution, because they were able to, especially in the second half. The reason they won that game is because they stuck to their guns. They did a little bit of tweaking here and there, but ultimately they were able to execute their plan in the second half of the game. That's how you get a dub. Now, here's the thing. The one question that everybody's been asking, however, even with a rating that ended up being the second highest rating in the NFL QBR, that is, last week in Desmond Ridder. Oddly enough, Jordan Love was the number 1 rated QBR last week, but people still had a lot of questions about Desmond Ridder's, because at the end of the day, it's 116 yards versus 245 yards, right? And so those are the kinds of things that make you go, those 2 things, they might be 1 and 2 stat line wise, but they're not really 1 and 2. So what is it that Arthur Smith can do or needs to do to put Des Ridder in a position to succeed Sunday? And Jarvis, if we take it a step further, what's the definition of success for Des?
Oh, wow. It starts with the offensive line, right? We have to start there
Yeah.
because when you have a rookie in Matthew Bergeron, who in his first start, grading out higher than Chris Lindstrom, I know no one had that, saw that happening, on Sunday at 4:00. Like, oh, how Matthew Bergeron grade out better than our $20 million a right guard. So I think that, it starts up front with the guys, not only Chris Lindstrom, but obviously Caleb McGarry and also Drew Dahlman and Matthew Bergeron continuing to be solid like he was against the Carolina Panthers. And got to put the Wiley veteran and Jake Matthews as well, because Aaron and I talked about this. After going back and watching that film, Derek Brown touched everybody.
Yes.
He gave everybody the work, not just that right side offensive line or Drew Dahlman. Like he went down the line and touched every last person and can put together a highlight film of each person that he went up against. So so now what you're faced with now is not necessarily, you might be faced with more guys because the Green Bay Packers they have a wave of dudes that can send at you, from Preston Smith to Rashawn Gary to Decatur's finest, Devontae Wyatt, out of UGA. So they have a lot of guys that can throw at you. So I think that in order for this offense to be successful, or Desmond Ridder to be successful, I think it starts with the offensive line, and then you're gonna need more than one chunk play. Because I give him the Kyle Pitts throw in the second half. That was great. Kyle Pitts made a great on the football, and he brought it down. That's what you expect from the highest drafted tight end in NFL history. So I think right now, if they can able to get like at least two more chunk plays, I think we'll still see that number from like 116 maybe go to like a 250 or 255 or even 265, and you can kind of see, okay, all right, this is what success looks like from Desmond Ridder on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And I would say the same. The definition of success for Des Ridder goes with the definition of success from the O-line. That's no question. Absolutely. Because that's where everything starts and stops. So even if we see more of that creativity that Arthur Smith is talking about, and I think it could work very well against this particular secondary. Like if you went into a 22 personnel type situation where you went more with a couple tight ends and a couple running backs and maybe just one receiver, that could bode well against this particular defense, right? But in order for you to even see if that kind of creativity can work, the O-line has to give you something up front. They have to give you something. They got to win battles in the trenches more often than not. And last week, you saw them win some battles in the trenches late, but you need to see this start to finish, because this Green Bay Packers team is a team that starts fast and they plan on finishing fast. Now, the one thing I will say is this: we talk about secret weapons, or we talk about X factors. And so I'll ask that X factor as well, this question, but this question that I want to pose to you first is about Ryan Nielsen, right? And that's kind of like him going into the Chester drawers. He might have actually played the best chess match last week, right? In terms of making Bryce Young look like one thing in the first half and another thing in the second half, right? So I felt like Ryan Nielsen really made some nice adjustments last week. But what does he need to do this week in order for this defense overall to have another solid showing, and dare I say, have just a little bit more of an impact up front?
Oh, he's going to have to put some pressure on Jordan Love. However he needs to do it, that's what he needs to do. Because when you think about all of the injuries that the Green Bay Packers are dealing with, you got Christian Watson may or may not be, making an appearance. Aaron Jones is questionable. So all of those things kind of are key factors as to what you'll be able to do from a defensive coordinator standpoint, right?
Indeed.
If I don't really have and even Romeo Dobbs as well, like he's dealing with some stuff, so some soft tissue injuries. So when you have the main targets, the main wide receiver guys dealing with things, that means, hey, I know Jeff Okudah more than likely won't be out there, but we got some people that can play some man coverage. Trey Flowers got some size on him. He can kind of do his thing, and then of course with AJ Terrell, who had an amazing. It was almost like he didn't even play last week because they weren't even throwing the ball his way. So I think that when you have those options on the outside, I think that it affords you the opportunity to maybe send some pressures have Jordan Love thinking that the line of scrimmage is like, okay, well, we didn't see this last week. So, that's all it takes right there. Just that, or I didn't see this, or what is this, or what are they doing right now?
Yep.
That half a second is all it's going to take to give Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata and Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree, all those guys, just a little bit of extra time to be able to get home. So I think that if they can put some pressure, show some things that, show Jordan Love some things that he's never seen before, or he's not necessarily used to, or they didn't prepare for. And I think that, Ryan Nielsen will be cooking with grease and getting off to a really good start instead of having to making adjustments on the back end.
Yeah, and I think that's the one good thing about what we saw last week in terms of them now knowing, okay, this is what we don't want to do, so that, to your point, we won't have to make as many adjustments. And not that they made a lot of adjustments. I think they did more tweaking maybe than anything.
Yeah, of course.
But still, you want to see as little tweaking as possible. And while it's great to get 2 sacks, because we know there were many games, not just last year, but these last couple of years where we didn't see the quarterback affected in any way, shape, or form that was meaningful, and definitely didn't see any on their on their backs. It's nice to get a couple last week, but you really want to see even more this week, because you want to be able to throw Jordan Love off his rhythm early, and then hopefully early turns into offense. So speaking of that, on both sides of the ball, let's go back to offense, and let's give one guy who you would say would be the X factor on offense for the Falcons to get a win this weekend.
Ooh, Cordero Patterson.
I'm
going with the Joker, because hey, to have that title, you don't know what to expect. If you didn't play last week, you don't know what to expect from Cordero Patterson. I think that he can be a weapon that I really feel like Arthur Smith can get really creative with, and to put him into games, because a lot of times defense coordinators call plays according to what type of personnel that they have in the huddle. If you have a Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson, Bijan Robinson, and Tyler Algier in the game at the same time, it's like, all right, so what are we doing here? And I said, that little is going to be what you need to be able to get that playoff or maybe take a shot deep down the field. So I think that Cordero Patterson coming back, I think it's going to work out well for the Falcons. And give them opportunity to be able to make some plays down the field.
Yeah, and I would like to say on offense, I have to agree with you, because he was a wild card even before there was a Bijan Robinson. And the reason I say that, meaning because you kind of knew what Tyler Algier was, who's more like the bruising back, who definitely could still catch a ball here or there. But with Bijan, you almost feel like you've got a 50-50 in terms of kind of half running back, half receiver. Well, Cordero Patterson is the original blueprint of that for the Falcons, that is, right?
Right.
And of course, can give you something on special teams as well. So I want to co-sign on that and say, yeah, he, to me, is the X factor for the Falcons on offense, because, hey, that's kind of what a Joker is. Joker's wild. Joker can do anything. What about on defense? Who would you say would be your X factor